morning. Welcome to Coffee with a Pastor. Glad you could join me this morning. We're looking at the themes of Advent. Last week we did the Advent week of hope. It's the candle of hope. This week the Advent candle is that of love. It's the warmth of love of the staples, really kind of how I explain it. But I don't think we can have a week talking about love, which we're doing here, without having at least one devotional thought on John 3:16. John 3:16 to me is the greatest verse in the Bible. It explains God and who He is and what He's done and all the things that He's done. And so let me remind you, I know you know it, but and you can just say it in your mind with me if you want to. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him should not perish but have everlasting life. For God so loved. God is love. The Bible talks about God is love. For God so loved the world. He is the greatest lover. He loves us in ways that only He can do and only He does. He loved us so much that while we were yet sinners, He sent Christ to die for us. For God so loved. He loved the world that He sent His only begotten Son. But not only is He the greatest lover, He's the greatest giver. Jesus Christ is the greatest gift that's ever been given. You know, I may love you, and I do love you, but I don't know that I'd love you enough to sacrifice one of my kids or my grandkids for you, or allow them to go through great suffering for you. That's what God did for us in Jesus Christ. It was the greatest gift that the world has ever known. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth. Do you believe in Jesus? Do you believe in God? Do you believe God's love? Do you believe that He's come to express His love through us, through Jesus? He's the greatest lover. He's the greatest giver. He's given us the greatest gift. And that gift continues. That we don't have to perish, but that we can have everlasting life with Him. And we can spend the rest of our eternity with Christ. You know, we needed to see who God was. Even in the Old Testament times and still today, people believe God is kind of this cosmic cop, this kind of cruel God that's there to get us, but He really isn't. And Jesus came to show us who He really was. Showed us how to be saved, how to show us how to live. Back in the early 1900s, I heard the tale of a farmer. This was one of Paul Harvey stories, if you remember Paul Harvey. But this farmer was a good man, but he was not a Christian. And it was Christmas Eve. And his wife and children were getting ready to go to church. And they asked him if he wanted to go. And he said, no, I'd be a hypocrite if I went. He said, I think Jesus is a good man, but I don't think He's God's Son. I don't see how in the world why God would send His Son down here. I don't believe He's God's Son, so I'm not going to be a hypocrite. So he went on. Well, this is back before you had weathermen to tell you what the weather was, and they didn't have a weather forecast. And a blizzard blew in. And the man's inside his house. His wife and kids are at the church safe. But he starts hearing these little birds peck at the windows. And he goes out and he realizes they're freezing to death. And he feels sorry for them, so he goes and opens the door and thinks that they'll go in the barn, but they don't go immediately. Well, he tries shooing them in, and they won't go. He tries leading them in through breadcrumbs and they won't go. And he's frustrated and he thinks to himself, if only I could become a bird for just a little while, I could tell them and show them where it's safe and how to save their lives. About that time, the church bells rang. He thought to himself, that's why Jesus came to this earth. And it is, and it came because he loves us. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. What a great verse. What great truths. Hope you'll go in that love today. Thank you, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye now.